pulled. I can announce our consent calendar again for people who may be here for those. AB 172 is on consent. AB 240 is on consent. AB 480 is on consent. AB 930 is on consent. There's some more of those. AB 1364 is on consent. AB 1447 is on consent. AB 1448 is on consent. AB 1577 is on consent. AB 1578 is on consent. And AB 1579 is on consent.
Keep going.
Well, that's all I could do. We tried.
You should just put them all in consent.
1, 2. We've got 3. We need at least 6. So as soon as we get them, sergeant's calling the absent members. As soon as we get more, we'll be ready to go.
You need 7.
Oh. 6, 7.
Now, Mr. Chair, the 2 that were pulled, are they for another hearing or are they just pulled?
I'm sorry.
I knew they were coming up today, but I wasn't sure if anybody from Wine Gardens made it.
We may get started as a sub in just a second. I apologize for my members who are not here. But as you guys know, since I've seen some of you in your committees, I know that everybody's, kind of like running around with a chicken with their respective heads cut off.
However, notice the ones that are here.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Ng signed in first. Mr. Blumenfeld, you were second.
You don't see Mr. Ng.
I don't see Mr. Ng. Mr. Blumenfeld, if you want to get started, we'll start that again. As soon as we establish a quorum, I'll probably interrupt you so that we can do that. But I just want to try to economize time as much as we can today because I know that everyone's busy. Members, Mr. Blumenfeld has file item number 4 for us on disaster preparedness. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The bill I have is, I think it's a fairly simple bill. It's based on the fact that we need to be more prepared for disasters. My district was the center of the Northridge earthquake, which was one of the costliest disasters in U.S. history. This year marks the 15th anniversary of that disaster. We had 72 deaths and nearly 12,000 injuries resulted from it. For California, it's not a question of if the next one is coming. It's a question of when. We know it's going to happen, and we need to do more to be prepared. To move toward that end, I created a Valley Prep Task Force in my district to start getting people prepared. And I've also put this bill forward, which is it's a modest attempt to move us forward in that direction. And basically all it does is it requires state agencies, state entities, to have a link on their website that is put together by CalEMA with all the disaster information. This is not a new concept. Back in the 1990s, during the energy crisis, we had a similar requirement for energy conservation, and that worked out very well. So there's a smooth path to being able to do this. The cost is negligible, but it's a great way to help promote disaster preparedness. This bill is supported by the Red Cross, the Board of Accountancy, AFSCME, many folks. There is no opposition to this bill, and so in the interest of time,
I'll show one technical amendment on it's on page 3 of the analysis on page 2, line 19 of the bill, to replace quake with earthquake.
Yes, and I'm happy to do that.
Okay, it's a technical amendment. It's not.
And the other amendment that you might have seen is we wanted to replace, working very closely with CalEMA. They want us to make it a little more general rather than we originally were just dealing with earthquakes, and they want it to be more disaster preparedness, so that to conform with their overall website. So working with them, we've also agreed, and I think that's reflected in the current bill, for the slightly expanded thing. So it's not just about earthquakes; it's about what CalEMA wants, which is disasters in general.
Okay, we'll take both of those as authors' amendments as soon as we get one more body in. Senator Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I certainly applaud your intention here as a former public safety guy. I understand the need for, and certainly have been involved in some disaster work. The question I've got is, are we overreaching a little bit? Certainly there are some web pages where this would seem entirely appropriate, but by this mandate, we're going to make some mandated advertising on some web pages that really, I question whether when you go to the Chiropractic Board's web page, you're thinking or need to think about disaster preparedness, or if you're trying to figure out how to get your automobile repaired, you go to the Bureau of Automobile Repairs web page, or you want to figure out what hours the Railroad Museum's open. I just think that we're overreaching when, in some of these web pages that are well designed and have other information that they think is more important or as important, we're making a mandate that sets the priorities for a lot of folks that, it just seems to me like we might be going out on a limb and in some cases doing something we shouldn't be doing, shouldn't be mandating. I'd appreciate your response to whether or not this might be a little more broad than it really needs to be.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, as I said, we did this with energy conservation. There is a working group task force that's already in place at the state level that decides sort of how these things get implemented, and they get to decide what is the home page. So you have a state agency, and one state agency may decide that their homepage is the state agency homepage, and another may sort of filter it down to the museum's homepage, but I doubt that. So I don't think it's going to be as overreaching. I trust the discretion of the folks in the state agencies to understand, where their homepage is. It says state entity. And they can make that determination and have it. But I do think we need to be. I mean, at the end of the day, this is about preparing everyone, and a lot of folks don't think that they need to be prepared for disasters, and that's where California gets into trouble. And this is probably, I think, the most important message that the state government can send out. The most important thing that we do as government, as you know, is protecting our citizens, and the way we protect them is by having this information easily available.
No argument there, but when the section that you're proposing says any state entity that publishes an internet website shall prominently display, that's pretty broad, and I don't see anything in there about the agency homepage or any kind of limitation on. It's if you have a website, period, the way I read it.
Well, I mean, state entity is a term of art. It has a definition. I mean, it's those agencies that are controlled by the governor. It doesn't affect, let's say, legislative websites, and so it's they don't have to put it on every single page of every single website. It has to be on the home page. And
okay,
so,
I just don't see where that's clear in the bill, but I don't think we're going to resolve that today, but I appreciate your thought.
Senator Harmon.
Well, I want to follow up on the same line. The bill says any state entity that publishes an internet website. How many state entities are there, Mr. Blumenfeld?
I don't know the exact number, and what I just want to also call your attention, the first page of the bill says, require any state entity that publishes an internet website to prominently display on the home page of that website. And that's where the discretion issue comes in, because it's the home page of the website.
No, I'm thinking there are hundreds and hundreds of state entities that have websites, as well they should. And, here we're requiring every single one of those to put this type of a notice on it. I just went on the internet this morning, had my staff do it. We just randomly selected the California Department of Boating and Waterways. And members, I don't have one to pass out, but if I could just, there's 11 different links on here that are already on the boating ways, just as an example. So one is dealing with swine flu. The other one is Save Our Water, recoverycalifornia.gov. Here's one about Flex Your Power. It's something to do with energy power. Here's Amber Alert. Reporting transparency in government. Operation Dry Water. And then finally there's one or two about voting, which you would expect to see on voting. So these are getting cluttered already, and here we're going to put another one on there. You can't tell me that someone logs on to the State Board of Accountancy and they want to find out about emergency preparedness. We all use the internet and go to websites, and we get all these, what are they called, pop-up ads and so forth. They almost become a nuisance, and I'm concerned that's what's going to happen with websites of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of state entities. So it's extremely broad, Assemblyman, and I...
Hold up just a second.
Let's do it.
We've got a quorum. Let me call the roll.
Wright.
Here.
Wright present. Harmon.
Here.
Harmon present. Benoit.
Here.
Benoit present. Calderon. Denham. Flores. Flores present. Negrete McLeod.
Here.
Negrete McLeod present. Oropeza. Padilla. Price.
Here.
Price present. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee.
Here.
Yee here.
Okay, we've got a quorum. Okay.
Well, I'm just concluding, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. But it just seems that the bill is overly broad. It would provide information that is just not going to be used by the people that are going to that website. So I can't support the bill this morning. I'm sorry, Assemblyman.
May I respond? I appreciate your candor on it. I'd like to respond. You mentioned the Board of Accountancy. Why would someone want to be on it? Well, they're one of the many supporters of this bill, for example. And the clutter on a website, there are not lots of requirements for websites to have buttons for this and for that. This is, sui generis. I mean, this is the most important thing I think that needs to be on there. This would be the only requirement on all of these websites. That we have something on disaster preparedness, and it would show a uniform approach in California. And yes, someone in voting should know. I mean, they should have access to the information about disasters. The more websites, in my view, that are out there that have direct links to this, the better prepared California is going to be, and the better prepared we are, the more money we're going to save in the end by having people prepared, and it's going to cost us less in the end. So I appreciate that you feel it's overbroad. I do not feel it's overbroad. I feel that it needs to be as broad as possible, but there's also a fair amount of discretion when deciding what your homepage is, because you can make that decision down the road.
Just one follow-up. We don't necessarily in this committee deal with costs involved. We're more on policy. But is there any idea of what the cost would be to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of websites to be upgraded with this type of information?
It would be negligible because the CalEMA, would put out the button, and it's literally just a click. You click a button, you put it on your website, and it's done. And it could be a very tiny, discrete button, and I think it's a good.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Senator, let me take a try. I would agree if the text and all of the information about the item had to be there. I mean, the idea would be that there would simply be a button, and that button would then direct you to the other information. So, I mean, in my own usage, I have logged on to websites and then used something that was totally unrelated to what I logged on the website for. When I said, oh, there's it might be that I was thinking about disaster, or my website in my office has several links that will take you to different things that I thought might have been interesting that had nothing to do with legislation, and I find I do that a lot. I think, as the Assemblyman pointed out, if it was requiring a design of the page and a number of other things, or if it were not something that CalEMA was prepared to do. If we were having to start from scratch, I would have some of the same concerns that you do, but I think the cost is negligible. How many people from each one will go, we may never know, but the one that does might be the one that ultimately save someone's life. So if it were squeezing out information from those websites, that too would concern me. Any other? Senator Yee?
Just a quick question to the author. Have you talked to the emergency response folks about how they feel about your bill?
Oh, yeah. No, we've worked very closely with them. I mean, they're the ones that earlier on I was saying one of the amendments that we took, we changed it from originally it was about, because earthquakes, what's on my mind, because that's my district, was the center of Northridge, and we were originally just focused on earthquakes. And they said to us, would you please, and it was in your analysis too, would you please expand it to make sure it's all about disaster preparedness? And we're happy to do so. And you know, so that they will work very closely.
They're inclined to be helpful and supportive of your efforts?
I don't want to, characterize. There's a whole approval procedure when you're dealing with the administration. So, to get them to approve something before the bill is indicating whether the governor will sign it. So they're not like most agencies; they won't go there. But they, as I said, they've worked very closely with us. I believe they provided analysis, and all of our indications are they are very positive about this idea.
All right, thank you.
Is there a motion or? Moved by Senator Price. Any further questions from the committee? Assemblyman, you can close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, call the roll.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
No.
Harmon, no. Benoit. Calderon. Denham. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negrete McLeod.
Aye.
Negrete McLeod, aye. Oropesa. Padilla. Price.
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye.
5-1, you need two more, and we've got some absent members.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Assemblyman Ng. Remember,
Thank you,
he's got
Mr.
file
Chair.
item number 10. Someone, you may open up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. It's an honor to be here. As we've said, California outsources $34 billion in services and consultant contracts. In a typical year, that works out to $28 million a day. Often these outsourced contracts have very little transparency and very little oversight. This bill is a transparency bill that will require state agencies to track contracts that the state outsources to private contractors and then post reports on an easy-to-use website so the public has access to what the state is spending its tax dollars on. In 2008, it was estimated that California could save almost $350 million a year by utilizing its in-house workers to cut unnecessary and wasteful outsourcing in three areas. $100 million or more in IT contracts, up to $200 million or more in medical registry contracts, and up to $50 million in architectural and engineering contracts. Many states like Alaska and Michigan and the federal government already provide this information in simple, easy-to-use websites so that everyone can understand where their dollars are being spent. This bill allows the legislature to restore fiscal responsibility to state government and allows the public to track how the state is spending its precious tax dollars. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Okay, you've got witnesses in
Yes,
support?
I have some witnesses in support.
Good morning, Chair, and also with committee members.
You may pull the mic a little closer to you.
My name is Margarita Maldonado, and I'm the bargaining chair of Unit 1. We represent about 8,000 IT workers within the state of California. It's SEIU Local 1000. And we have actually been working alongside Mr. Assemblymember Ng in order to help expose the amount of contracting of personal services contracts that are let right now, and as he stated, $34.7 billion. And we feel that all of this information should be transparent to all of us as taxpayers here in California, and that this bill would allow that transparency to occur, especially when we look at the state's current fiscal condition. It is just it's beyond my words, I guess I can say that we cannot capture this additional branch of government that is currently out there with the contracted work that the state is paying money for. So it's, we have an understanding that people feel that this bill is being moved in order to increase the IT workforce. It's not about increasing the IT workforce. It's about creating the transparency that all of us as citizens are looking for in state government now. And as stated before, Alaska is one of the states that does create this kind of transparency, as well as Kansas and Florida, and California should be there as well.
Other witnesses in support?
Just SEIU Local 1. SEIU Local 1000 in support.
Okay. Witnesses in opposition? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the committee? Any members?
Comments?
I'm sorry, Senator Benoit. I'll hold the motion.
Thank you. And I notice that the support of this bill, as I read it, is 3 public employee unions. Am I right on that? I don't see any others.
I'm sorry. I think Calaware is also in support, which is a group of citizen watchdog group is also in support.
Okay. It's clear that the intent here is to try and limit any ability for contracting out state services. The people who are supporting this are clearly good people, work for the state. I understand their motivation. But I also think that what we're doing to further their desire in this area is creating another bureaucracy and another cost to the state that's really unnecessary. Every one of these contracts are already subject to existing state law with regard to publication, availability, sunshine, public notice. This is simply now another level of compilation of the same data, putting it in a particular location to make it easier to point a finger and say, see how much of this is going on. And I think that it's unnecessary expense, particularly at a time when the state is facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit. We can debate, whether there are savings or not, but the agencies that put out these contracts make a determination whether or not there's a savings, and I believe in many cases they can find savings that way, and at the very least they create a competitive environment to determine what the potential cost and savings might be doing it in this alternative fashion. So I think that the idea of creating at large state expense an additional duplicative process like is the subject of this bill is a step in the wrong direction, and I cannot support the bill.
Senator Harmon?
Yeah, I know we have recently here in California kind of consolidated the administration of our IT work under a new head of that department, Chief Information Officer, CIO, I believe is the title. And I'm just wondering what that basically new department thinks about this bill, and are they supportive, opposing, or taking any position? Where are they on that?
We've been working very closely with them, and that the governor did put out an executive order requiring that a lot of this stuff already be posted, which means there won't be a lot of expense because of that. She's already said that she can save $127 million by taking and limiting some of this contracting, and that's already been scored in the budget. We think there's a lot more savings in other departments as well. We know the receiver is spending $1 billion on medical registry contracts, and we think if we could take a look at those and they'd be readily accessible, you'd be able to find similar kinds of savings. So we are working closely with the CIO. We've had many meetings. We're trying to make sure that what's different is we have all this information. It's not searchable. It's not available. Often you have to put a Public Records Act. What's available through DGS, where it's reported now, it's very hard to use unless you're almost a professional. So what this does, it opens it up, similar to what the Bush administration did in the federal government, and allows it to be readily available to citizens so they can see how their tax dollar is being spent.
All right, thank you.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman, member Steve Baker with Aaron Reed Associates for the Professional Engineers in California Government in support of the measure.
Okay.
If I could just respond to the earlier, I think this is a trend that right now California is in crisis of public confidence. By putting on, having information the public can readily see their tax dollars are being spent, that we have oversight over that, which we don't have right now. I think if we were to ask the agencies at any given time, where is the $34.7 billion being spent? Is it living up to the parameters that we set in terms of performance? I don't think anyone could tell you. I haven't been able to find the answers to that. And so I think this is a good government, transparency, oversight, and most important of all, it's instilling public confidence in our process. $35 billion is nothing to sneeze at.
Yes, sir.
I apologize for being late. We were stuck in another meeting. Keith Dunn for the American Council of Engineering Companies. The American ACEC does support Sunshine. We work with state agencies and, in fact, are audited extensively. I brought the latest version. It's 184 pages of Caltrans audit documents that show and outline the overhead costs that coordinate with the federal government, how those audits take place. And I'll have them available for members if you'd like to read them. But there's an extensive process already built into contracts with the state. This body actually approves, from an engineering and architectural perspective, our contracts with state agencies at Caltrans. It's done on an annual basis, so you know the exact number of positions that have been allocated. Those positions are then signed with when used at the department and audited based on federal regulations and also a partnership that's being developed with the state that's 187 pages. So, like I said, we do support Sunshine. We think that Sunshine is a good thing, and we applaud Mr. Ng for furthering those efforts. We just think that this process has been well established here at the state. Thank you.
If I could just respond to that. Go with me to the hiring halls where the hundreds of workers are lining up for work every day and they can't get a job. Let's make it easier for them. They don't have time to sift through these pages and pages and believe an agency that there is no work for them. So this is a bill that we absolutely need to instill confidence, not just by the public, by those many, many workers that do not have jobs right now.
Mr. Ng, you just described a second purpose. There's the issue of transparency and allowing the public to see how the dollar is spent. And then there's the issue of people looking for work. I'm not sure that both of those are going to be achieved in the bill. I mean, transparency, I think we can make an argument that the public ought to know how the dollar is spent. I'm not sure how much it is, $34 billion, the number you picked, we won't debate the number, but that $34 billion ought to be delineated. I'm not sure that this site would have a job roster to say, if you want to work on this project, call Fred Smith. I'm not sure.
I was just responding to the issue of our transportation contracts, that there was an inference that there was information that was available to show that there was money that was being spent in a proper manner, and I was just trying to draw a nexus to individuals that do ask me questions about whether the state dollars are actually there.
Yeah, and the positions are actually voted on in the budget every year in the subcommittee and then in the general budget, and you do it by number. It's capital outlay support positions. It doesn't advertise those jobs. It just allocates the funding to hire, and it's done for the department as well as the consultant community. This body has, over the years, decided that a 90-10 split has been the norm. We are the anomaly with the other 49 states that have such a high difference within the in-house and consultant community. But it is done. It's the process we've used here at the state, and it is voted on by everyone.
Let me ask you a question. You're in opposition, and there may be other committee. If the information is simply published on a web page as to what the contract was and what it did, how does that adversely impact the work that you do?
It doesn't, and if they want to have the department submit that information, I think the department's website is not the easiest to maneuver. I'm not a high-tech guy,
but you're making his point now.
Well, I don't disagree with.
Thank you.
I don't disagree with Mr. Ng on the sunshine portion. I believe that sunshine should be made available, and I think that the department already does all of that as far as collecting that information.
But to Mr. Ng, I'm not trying to debate your bill, sir. But
you're doing a better job than I am. Continue,
point,
Mr. Chair.
The idea would be that there would be a centralized point so that I could see Caltrans and I could see the Department of Health and I could see all of the departments in one location, as opposed to having to search through each of the departments individually.
Mr. Chair, could I add something to that?
Please.
I mean, I think this bill goes further than that. Mark Smith, on behalf of the Infrastructure Delivery Council, we have no problem with transparency and disclosure. We think the governor is doing a great job opening and disclosing some of that information right now, but this bill goes further in that it would require punitive assessments on any private consultants or contractors in the form of the inability to receive further payment for work and the inability to bid for future projects. So, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it is a duck. This bill is not just about transparency. This bill is about eliminating a source of, as Mr. Ng put it, frustration for further jobs, and the bill is very punitive. It isn't just not a transparency proposal.
Hold it.
And that part was taken out of the bill, by the way.
Hold on, Senator Grady McLeod.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I understand what personal services are. Do they mean personnel services? What is personal services? Toilet paper, Kleenexes, what?
I'll let Mr.
Like the nursing contract?
Yeah, these are individual services by an individual that's hired. Like, it might be a nurse, it might be a psychologist. It's a personal, in terms of someone who's providing those kinds of services for the state, working for the state.
Personnel?
That would probably be a better term for it. Like, for example, we have.
It's how they're referred to already in the code.
Because
we just use that.
I'm not sure what they meant. Oranges for people, or what?
For example, if there are nurses that are not available, there's a thing called medical registries, in which you will be hiring, contracting with a registry to bring in individual nurses, for example, to work the facility. That's called a personal service contract because the nurses represent that individual service. But you're right, probably a better
terminology would be personnel rather than personal service.
Personal just means that an individual does the work, and it's unspecified. But
okay.
Assemblyman, you might consider on your bill on page 4, on line 21, to the other gentleman's point. Beyond transparency, there's a punitive measure that exceeds the level of sunshine, and now you're actually into some retribution. If that, I mean, I'm not sure that that's necessarily.
I know that we took out one of the references to the punitive.
It's item 5 on the first page of the analysis.
Basically, it says until you provide the information, you won't get paid. As soon as you provide the information, then you get paid. So it's not saying you can't get any future contracts. Just until you provide what you said you would provide, then the payment won't be made.
Again, I mean, from the standpoint of sunshine, to me, I would think that responsibility should fall to the State Department and not necessarily to the contractor. My guess is that gets you a veto. I think if you fix that, you might have something that gets signed. I mean, but it's your call. It's not my bill. But that probably gets you a veto, that you put the punitive language in. I think if it's just clean and it's specifically about sunshine and transparency, and you collect all that information and put it on the site, I think you have a bill that does what you say. That kind of sort of, gives you a bit of a poison pill, and I'm not sure that was necessarily your intent, or it might have been. I don't want to be that presumptuous.
That's an excellent sit. We'll take a look at that. On the other hand, there needs to be an incentive for the agencies to actually provide the information on a timely basis.
If that was something to the agency, I think it's a difference as opposed to making it a responsibility of the contractor. Your stated purpose was that you wanted there to be a repository where I could find out what the state was doing in aggregate. And specifically, it was about the agencies themselves. I'm not sure that we now want to get into the individual contractors, because they may or may not have done anything wrong. And if they get paid, the state's going to be the one that pays them, so that responsibility, it would seem to me, should fall with the state rather than again, it's your bill. I'm not trying to rewrite your bill.
And we would be open to reevaluating our position if the burden was put on the state. We think that's the appropriate place for that sunshine to be shown.
We'll take a look at that as the bill moves forward. There does inflate the costs because of the oversight part, but we'd be happy to take a look at that. And thank you for the
Because at the end of the day, sir, it would appear to me that the contractor is not going to be the one that posts the information. It'll be the state agency. So now you could have a situation where the contractor provides the information, the agency doesn't post it, and now the contractor doesn't get paid, which puts the contractor in an untenable position. I'm not sure that was your desire per se, but that could be a problem, and I think it would. If I were the governor, it would get you a veto, but I ain't the governor, so handle it as you will. What's the pleasure of the committee? Moved by Senator Price.
I did have one question.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to look at the bill on page 2, line 23. One of the items of information that has to be posted is on line 23, item 5, reason why the low bid was not accepted. Seems to me that's been taken out?
No, what we tried to do is we were trying to meet the needs of our friends here who said that their contracts are often the higher bid in the transportation area. So we said that we thought it would be then fair to put in what was posted, that the higher amount was because of federal law, which has a different kind of bidding process. So that's actually something we took for the industry.
Let me be clear.
Let me finish my train of thought here, because all of the other items are more or less factual. How long is the contract? What date was the contract? They're hard evidence type thing. But this is a subjective thing. Why didn't you take the low bid? And who's going to answer that question? It seems like going to be difficult.
They said there was a federal law on qualitative contracts.
It's called QBS. It's actually the Brooks Act. There's a little Brooks Act in California, and it requires design services not to be cost-based. You don't want the cheapest guy building your bridge.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. And it is for safety, for the public safety, so that you don't have the least experienced, and maybe the most cost-effective, but the least experienced individual building your public infrastructure. And it's been a measure that's federally in statute, as well as I believe in most other states.
I think as well, and we've got a motion, we'll go back, but as well, Senator, the state contracting code also specifies that it's the lowest responsible bid, so that agencies would make a determination in some instances that I chose company A. A tough committee. I chose agency A over agency B. In some instances, it might have been experienced, or in some cases, the agency may have made a determination. To your point, it could be subjective, that this agency seemed to provide a better responsible bid and not necessarily the lowest bid. So, and by the way, Senator, that's already required in state law. When you don't accept the low bid, you have to demonstrate why you didn't accept the lowest bid. We've got a motion, Senator Ng. You get to close again. I would, if you leave here today, I would suggest strongly that you look at clarifying the language with respect to the contractor, because I think that'll give you some grief down the road. But it's your bill, and we're not trying to rewrite it today. You get to close, sir.
I'm very, very appreciative of all the very constructive comments. Every single one of them are very, very helpful, and we'll take a look at that. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Okay.
Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. Benoit?
No.
Benoit, no. Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham? Flores?
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negrete McLeod?
Aye.
Negrete McLeod, aye. Oropeza? Padilla? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins? Wyland? Yee.
We've got to get two more for you, sir, so we'll keep working.
Thank you.
Ms. Evans, welcome aboard.
Good morning.
One's on consent. You've got two on consent. Which one are we doing? Item 21. Oh, that came off consent? Didn't I go to consent? You never did. Oh, okay, then my bad. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Item 21. You've got two items on consent,
Yes.
so we were okay.
This is AB 1470.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so switching gears from high tech to wine bars.
Okay.
This is a very simple bill. When you go to a restaurant right now under current law and you order a nice bottle of wine, you might pay $50, $75 for your bottle of wine. You drink as much as you'd like. You need to drive home, so you don't want to finish the bottle. The restaurant can cork the bottle for you, put it in a bag, you put it in your trunk, and you drive home. The same is not true of wine bars. And wine bars are becoming more and more popular. They usually serve a little bit of food. You buy a nice bottle of wine, but you're not allowed to take it home. And so this bill would extend the same law to wine bars. It's an attempt to discourage overconsumption because you've purchased a bottle and you don't want to finish it before you drive home. So this bill would simply extend that law to wine bars so that you can cork the bottle, put it in your trunk, and take it home. That's what the bill does. I have Mr. Velasco here from the Wine Institute to answer technical questions.
I'm not aware of any opposition, Senator Benoit.
Well, I have one concern is that in, I think, last session we had a select committee on wines. I don't recall that we've met to test this theory this year.
Mr. Benoit, you are always welcome in my office to test
Okay, thank you. I
any
was just
theory
checking on
related to
that.
wine that you would like.
Just don't uncork it or go open container.
That's true.
Is there?
Move it.
It's been moved by Senator Greta McLeod. Why don't you have your witnesses identify themselves? And
Mike Velasco, Wine Institute. We ask for your aye vote.
My staff.
Is there any opposition? Okay, call the roll.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit.
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon. Denham. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negretti McLeod. Negretti McLeod, aye. Oropesa. Padilla. Price.
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee.
Vote aye.
Aye.
Yee, aye.
That's the good shoes, though.
Sufficient, right.
Okay, that's 7. We'll hold the roll open
Thank
for
you very much.
The members. Assemblyman Hall, welcome aboard. $600. Okay. You're going to start with 600.
If you don't mind, Honorable
You
Chair.
want to go to 813?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Item 11, members.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. AB 813 simply amends the Gambling Control Act to require the Department of Justice to examine documents for routine audits during the normal business hours as outlined in the bill. The bill is supported by the Village Club, Lucky Chances Casino, and Lucky Derby. I ask for your aye vote. I have Mr. Rod Blunion with the car clubs to give answer any questions that you might have.
Is there any opposition?
No, there's no opposition to this bill, by the way.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Park.
Mr. Hall, what was the rule before? They could just come in at any time? Or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members, Rod Blunion. We have had incidents where they've come in at 10:45 at night and wanted to see payroll records, wanted to see financial records that the management on the scene doesn't have the key to those file cabinets, and so the owner has to get out of bed and come down or tell the manager where their key is hidden, etc. And it's.
Are these unannounced visits? Or?
Yes, they are unannounced visits.
Senator Flores.
I was just wondering where Mr. Hall gets his suits. My vote is contingent on that.
Well, we're not allowed to have commercials in the committee.
Okay, we'll talk after.
He might have.
I don't want to give the governor any more fodder about us wasting it.
And I want to dispel the rumor. This is not a bequeath from Herschel Rosenthal.
Okay, well, Senator Flores, I'm going to take that as a motion that you have on the bill, and you and the Assemblyman will conduct that business outside of the. Yes, indeed. Assemblyman, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Call the roll.
Members.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit. No. Benoit, no. Calderon. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores. Flores, I. Negretti McLeod. Negretti McLeod, I. Oropeza. Padilla. Price. Price, I. Wiggins. Wyland, Yee. Yee, I. 7-1.
It's 7-1. That we'll leave the roll open. We've got some members absent. You want to do 700?
I can do 700.
I mean 600. Pardon me.
Yes, sir.
Item number 7, members.
First of all, I'd like to, Mr. Chair, thank you for being a co-sponsor, a co-author of the bill. Mr. Chair and members, AB 600 is a district bill that would authorize the Department of General Services to enter into a long-term lease with the City of Compton for the use of the Compton Armory property. In November 2006, the California National Guard vacated the 6-year-old armory. For nearly 3 years, the site has sat underutilized and in a state of disrepair. The City of Compton is interested in utilizing the property and would like the option of entering into a lease with the state. Situated between two schools.
Is there any opposition here?
I'll move the bill.
It's moved by Senator Denham.
Only because you're a co-author.
Indeed, and it is a district bill for our respective districts. The maximum.
Okay, so they want to go longer than 5.
Yes.
Move the bill.
Okay. It's been moved. Assemblyman, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I would like to thank the Honorable Chair, my senator, for being the co-sponsor and author of the bill.
Call the roll.
He tells me where to buy the seeds.
Right.
Aye.
Right, I. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, I. Benoit. Benoit, I. Calderon. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, I. Flores. Flores, I. Negretti McLeod. Negretti McLeod, I. Oropeza. Padilla. Price. Price, I. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee. Yee, I.
That's 8-0. That's enough. We'll hold the roll open. You've got one more. 1282.
Thank
Item
you.
16, members. And you've got some author's amendment?
That is correct.
Okay.
Those are in the bill.
They should have
They're
already
in print already.
In print
Okay.
already. Yes.
Okay.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and members. AB 1282 extends to out-of-state domestic and overseas brewers, as well as importers, the same privileges as California brewers have with respect to the dollar value of advertising specialty items that may be given away to adult consumers. It also makes it explicit that beer manufacturers cannot require beer wholesalers to fund consumer advertising specialties furnished by the beer manufacturer. AB 1282 was sponsored by Heineken USA and supported by Anheuser-Busch, Miller Corp., Diageo, North America, and Crown Importers. I ask for your aye vote, and we have witnesses here.
Witnesses in support?
Yes, Bob Garcia, Heineken USA, we're the sponsors of the bill, and straightforward correction to a drafting error in last year's AB 1245. Senator Flores was very involved in that bill and ably brokered a compromise on that. That bill inadvertently excluded out-of-state brewers and duly licensed importers from participating in the enhanced marketing allowed under AB 1245, and this bill corrects that drafting error.
Herb Schmidt, I represent Crown Imports, another co-sponsor. I don't have anything to add, just ask for your aye vote, respectfully.
Is there opposition?
There is no opposition to the bill.
Well, it's not. I think we've got one, but he may not be here. The Council on Alcohol Policy.
He's not. Oh, I thought you meant present.
Okay. They may have sent a ringer in. We didn't know. There's a motion, Assemblyman, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote, sir.
Call roll.
Right.
Aye.
Right, I. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, I. Benoit.
Aye.
Benoit, I. Calderon. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, I. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, I. Negretti McLeod. Negretti McLeod, I. Oropeza. Padilla. Price.
Aye.
Price, I. Wiggins. Wyland, Yee. Yee, aye.
That's 8. That's enough to get out. We'll hold the roll open for absent members. Thank you. Ms. Huber, welcome aboard.
Busted out with the white shoes, too.
I know.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members.
Members, Ms. Huber, you're going to do 579?
I am.
State boards audits. That's item number 6, members.
Thank you very much. AB 579 requires the state auditor to audit the workload of members of boards and commissions, at least 2 per year. The goal being finding out if the workload actually justifies the salaries that have been set by the legislature. As you know, we do set the salaries for these boards and commissions. The appointments range depending on the board and commission of who does the appointing. But currently, the Integrated Waste Management Board makes $132,000 a year. The Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board makes $114,000 a year. There has been some concern on whether or not the workload justifies these salaries. So this bill just attempts to make sure that we have the correct data in order to set accurate salaries so that the taxpayers aren't paying for more than the work that they're getting. With that, I urge my vote.
Make sure I understand something. So it's not to audit each board twice a year, but it's to audit 2 boards per year.
Per year.
Okay, I thought what you said, and when I was reading, I was kind of like, okay, that would be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would audit. We have 2 audits per year of different boards.
Right. So that over time we would cover all of the appointed boards and commissions where the legislature actually sets the salaries.
And the basis of the audit would be?
Looking for the workload to see if they are working full-time, if they're working part-time, and we certainly don't want to pay folks $132,000 a year for working, say, 5-10 hours a month. So that's part of what the goal of the audit is to find out. And we may find that as some of these boards, they're actually working 2,000 hours a year. There's been a number of articles speculating that people aren't really working full-time, and so this is a tool to get a nonpartisan assessment of the workload of those boards and commissions.
Senator Benoit.
Thank you. A very timely bill. A couple of questions. How many I assume you're only going after boards where there's a salary as opposed to those where there's a per diem only stipend type payment. How many boards are there? The question goes to, is 2 enough, and how long would it take to get through the boards that would be audited under this bill?
Originally, I had listed 16 different boards and commissions as a goal of trying to get the workload assessed of all the boards and commissions because of the financial situation we find ourselves in. We had to get the number down so that the cost of doing all 16 of those boards and commissions was too costly to ever come out of appropriations for either house. So we settled on doing 2 a year, starting with the ones where there has been the most, I guess, criticism of the workload, and then working our way through the rest of them so that we're covering all of them. And I think it's good policy, too, to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to test the workload before we set salaries.
Okay, that's a good approach. I understand the limitations on appropriations and why you'd go to 2. It'd be nice to get through them quicker than 8 years. But the second question is the breadth of the audit. Well, for instance, I know that in the Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board, their workload has tripled or quadrupled in the last year as a number of appeals has been filed and follows the economy. I have very little doubt that the people there are working a lot of hours. I guess a bigger question is, does it take the kind of people we're paying at the kind of salaries we're paying to do that kind of a review and appeal process? We're paying an executive salary for a process that perhaps could be done by a mid-level managerial person or pay scale. So I guess the question I would ask is, could we broaden the audit to include a workload analysis and determine whether or not the pay is appropriate for the level? Is there a more economic way to get the same due process accomplished?
I think in drafting the language, we tried to provide the auditor with the ability to do just that. The language is that The auditor should be looking at the number of hours necessary for each board member or commissioner to work to fulfill his or her duties to that state board and commission. And the hope is, what is necessary? Does it require getting training for additional expertise, for example? And if it does, then maybe more hours are justified. But allowing that wiggle room for the state auditor to do what she does best and not be overly prescriptive about the methodology that she uses to do that audit.
Well, let me say that I will support the bill, but I would suggest, considering before it goes to appropriations, an amendment to broaden that to go beyond the hours to the type of work and qualifications and pay scale necessary to get that work accomplished. Again, we've got some very high-paid, nice people doing it, but could we do it with, without having to hire former members of this body at $120,000 a year? Could we do it with, perhaps if we could double the number and cut the salary in half, but use qualified, well-trained, managerial-level people instead?
I'll discuss that with the state auditor's office and find out whether that would broaden the scope to a point that it would be excessively more expensive than the way that it is now. And so I don't want to commit to that today, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Denham.
And just to clarify, this bill does not attempt to address whether or not the board or commission is needed, or whether the staff and their type of workload, but more importantly, the board members and commissioners themselves on the appropriate salaries for them and benefits.
That is correct.
Thank you. And to Senator Benoit's question, I would hope that these audits are done far less than 8 years, because there are many of us that are trying to get rid of some of these boards and commissions over the next couple of years. And so by reducing the number of boards and commissions, hopefully that will make these audits move a little smoother.
Senator Price?
I think it's a very timely bill, and appreciate your bringing this forward. As a kind of follow-up to Senator Denham's question, though, is there some pecking order of the 16? Is the auditor going to make that decision? Does the law specify which ones should be done first?
This bill only calls out the first two, and thereafter the auditor will decide the priorities of which boards and commissions to audit. And part of the reason for not being prescriptive is exactly Senator Denham's point. If some of these are gone 2-3 years from now, but yet the bill calls out when they're supposed to be audited, then we may miss the opportunity to do those audits of at least two of the boards and commissions. So we call out the first two, which have been the most problematic in terms of the perception of the workload, but leave it to the auditor's discretion thereafter.
Good.
Moved by Senator Denham.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Senator.
I have a couple of questions. I think one is that when you do audits, you don't just kind of go in there and ask questions and get answers. You kind of do a due diligence. You're going to have to sort of dig into some information and whatnot. So that takes some time. And so it seems that what you are calling for, which is an audit just of those two areas, the workload and the compensation, seem like a rather inefficient way of maximizing what an auditor would have already have gathered in terms of information. For them to kind of do their due diligence to ask just these two, sort of rather discrete questions seem to me, rather inefficient, because they've got this body of knowledge already, about these boards. And so, I wonder whether or not there's a way of making sure that we don't lose that information. And that's one point. I think the other point is that JLAC sort of controls the workload within the state auditor, and the question I would have is, why not go through the JLAC process rather than going through this process? And so if you can kind of comment on those 2 points.
Sure. On the first one, I think that whenever the state auditor issues a report based on an audit, even if the question is narrow, the practice of the state auditor tends to be to provide all of the information that help to lead to the conclusions of the state auditor, so that we do capture a lot more data than is presented in just answering the question of what is the workload and what is the salary of these various boards and and commissioners. So I do think that we'll get more information. I don't want to be overly prescriptive because I do think that the whole point here is to get an independent analysis and to try not to overly manage what the state auditor is going to say or how she's going to present that information and what data she's going to provide to us, but just try to get the underpinnings of that data so that we can assess for ourselves, based on the information presented by the state auditor, whether those boards and commissions are overpaid, underpaid, what have you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just comment on that point, that goes to, I think, Senator Denham's point, which is that, you know, if you're going to ask the question about the salary and the workload, that seemed to then, you know, really move us into that larger discussion about, you know, is that particular board or are those boards and commissions really needed, or is there a more efficient way of executing those tasks and responsibilities? And so if you're going to get into that sort of particular area, you know, shouldn't you then, you know, move the auditor a little bit further along in their scope so that you capture that larger issue, which is, you know, is this the right way of even carrying out the duties and responsibility of those respective boards and commission?
I think that goes to really your second question also on what is the purview of JLAC. The reason for doing it this way, and I am the chair of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, so I'm very familiar with what comes through the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. It's really not the purview of JLAC to set up a process for audits over an 8-year period of time, because you've got a committee that's kind of whatever it is for 1 or 2 years, and the membership changes. And this, as a statutory vehicle, allows us to look every year without kind of undoing it, depending on what the political whims of that particular JLAC committee are. So that's why I tried to go this route instead of just using the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. Had we been able to just blanketly do all boards and commissions at one time, had we had the resources to do that, that might have been the preferred route. But doing it in a more I guess I would say it's more methodical to go over 8 years, doing 2 a year every year. We'll keep the dialogue happening.
Dancer.
Well, about whether or not particular boards and commissions, as we get the results of these audits, do need to be changed. And that's really where, if we need more information, JLAC would certainly be the appropriate vehicle to get more information if one of those boards or commissions should be changed, reevaluated, repurposed, whatever. I think that we can use these audits as a starting point for that conversation and certainly get more information if one turns out to be a problem. It may be that some of these audits come back saying there's not a problem.
Okay, Senator Denham.
I just wanted to reemphasize the same point what Senator Lee had here. Senator Yee, the next one should be JLAC. An independent study is very important. This is a very important bill. We had the independent study from the LAO that recommended this. We had the independent study by the California Performance Review that recommended this. We had the Little Hoover Commission's independent study that recommended this. Once we have the 4th independent study that recommends actually getting rid of these boards once again, we ought to go to the 5th independent body, being JLAC, and that'll be another great bill. But eventually, as all of these independent studies have come out and said that these boards and commissions should go, eventually, hopefully, we'll get rid of them, especially in a time of crisis like this. Again, I'll move the bill.
Got a motion. Assemblywoman, you may close.
Thank you very much. And I understand it. It's not the perfect solution at this point, but we certainly have a perception that we've got boards and commissions that are making hefty salaries, that are filled with termed out legislators or legislators waiting for their next office in line. And this is a good first step to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the taxpayers' money is not being wasted, but is actually being spent for work that's performed. So I ask for your aye vote.
Call roll.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit.
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negretti McLeod.
Aye.
Negretti McLeod, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Price.
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 8-0.
That's out. We'll leave the roll open for our absent members. Ms. Buchanan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to do something since I've got folk here. I'm going to open the roll on the consent calendar. It's been moved by Senator Harmon. Open the roll on the consent calendar.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit.
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores. Negretti McLeod. Aye. Negretti McLeod, aye. Oropesa. Padilla. Price. Aye. Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee. Yee, aye.
Okay. 7, we'll hold that open. Woman, you've got AB 1006, file item 14.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. I need to turn this on. Is it on? Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to present this bill today. It's a simple bill. It's a bill that will help alleviate traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions for communities in California by encouraging the Department of General Services to consider additional factors when selecting a location for future leases, lease purchase, construction, or the purchase of state buildings. Specifically, AB 1006 requires DGS to consider the location of the population served, the residential locations of the majority of their workforce, and the proximity to transit when planning for the construction or acquisition of new state buildings over 10,000 square feet. AB 10006 is consistent with the intent of AB 32 and SB 375 that create standards for local governance and planning commissions, and this bill now would require the state of California to lead by example.
Is there any opposition? I see you've got support. I don't think there was any. We'd entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Price. Again, I'm not aware of any. Is there any opposition present? Why don't your witnesses identify themselves?
Mr. Chairman, members, Jason Gonzalez on behalf of the City of Elk Grove in strong support.
Sure, member Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council in support.
Okay, there's no opposition. Any questions from the committee? It's been moved by Senator Price. Assemblywoman Buchanan, you may close.
Great. Well, I respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you.
Call the roll.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit.
No.
Benoit, no. Calderon. Denham. Flores. Negretti McLeod. Aye. Negretti McLeod, aye. Oropesa. Padilla. Price. Aye. Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee. Aye. Yee, aye. It's currently 5-1.
5-1. You need 2 more. We'll hold the roll open.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Garrett, welcome aboard with us. You've got file item 181444.
Good morning, members of the committee. The California Department of General Services, DGS, is the sponsor of AB 1444, which would authorize the department to advertise and award service contracts related to the disposition of real property. This bill would allow DGS to establish lists of pre-qualified external consultants who can perform the various services DGS typically utilizes as part of its real property disposition program. This bill will essentially save the state money, as DGS will not have to use the bid process for each and every piece of property that in its search for external services. As a result, real property could be sold at a much more efficient and timely manner. In addition, this bill would bring in sales proceeds to the state in a more expeditious time frame. With me is Melanie Perrone and Bob McKinnon from the Department of General Services, here to discuss the current process and speak to any questions you may have regarding the bill.
Now we understand it's your birthday.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Welcome aboard with us.
Thank you. Melanie Perrin with the Department of General Services. We are the sponsor of this bill. When DGS receives legislative authorization to dispose of state real property, we sometimes require the use of specialized consultants that we do not have in-house. This process requires us to go out for a request for proposal, a request for qualification, which takes about 3 to 6 months in addition to our normal disposition process. This costs the state money, adds time to us trying to dispose the property. We seek to create a pre-qualified list of these services so we are not having to go out to bid every time. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
How many
Go ahead.
How many properties are we talking about annually?
We average probably 10 to 12 that we would utilize these services on average, Senator.
10 to 12 statewide?
Yes.
So under our current process, would it not be more cumbersome, assuming we do anywhere from, what's the smallest year? The smallest number of properties per year?
Senator, probably 3 to 4, if that's all that's authorized.
You didn't tell us who you were. I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, Bob McKinnon. I manage the surplus property program for General Services.
Okay, just like to know who we're talking to. Okay.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
I imagine you're just about out of work, assuming, seeing that we have declared very few properties surplus over the last several years.
The pipeline has dried up a little bit, Senator, but I mean we still have projects that we're completing.
The challenge here would appear to be not whether or not we need more realtors to go out and sell these properties, but the challenge would be that we don't actually liquidate the properties that we have. And we have about 22,000 buildings and about 12.5 million acres that the state owns, and yet we have anywhere from 3 to 12 properties that we declare surplus every year. I mean, if we really had a true declaration process and we were really pushing properties, this bill would be one of the most important bills of the year. But the challenge still remains that we don't declare things surplus. We hold on to everything. I understand that that's a different topic. I am certainly supportive of this bill, but there's a much greater challenge that we have out there right now today. Okay, and hopefully this lease buyback that the governor is the sale leaseback is something that will help this process along.
Is that your motion?
I will move the bill, yes.
Moved by Senator
I just needed to vent for a minute.
Okay. Assemblyman, you can close.
I appreciate the senator's comments. I, too, like he, am concerned about the lack of properties in the pipeline, considering the numerous properties that the state has that could be disposed of. And this bill will allow, when those properties are in the pipeline, which I would be pleased to work with him and any other members on expediting, to be moved along quickly by having those services that the department needs at their on a shorter time frame.
I'm sorry,
I urge an aye vote.
Let me hold. I'm sorry. There's witness opposition or support? Support. Okay.
Mark Smith on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies. Keep it brief. The long and short of it is we had some concerns. We want to thank the author and DGS staff for working with us on the QBS issue. We are in support of the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Call the roll.
Wright.
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon.
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit.
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores. Flores, aye. Negrete McLeod. Negrete McLeod, aye. Oropesa. Padilla. Price.
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee. Yee, aye.
Happy birthday.
9-0. We'll hold the roll open.
Thank you.
Mr. Portantino, welcome aboard. Members, he has item 8, AB 605.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 605 is a simple bill which would allow thoroughbred horse racing results to be included in propositional parimutuel pool wagers. Members, the horse racing industry in California is in peril. Bay Meadows, which first opened in 1934, closed in 2008, and the land is being developed for other uses. Magna Entertainment, the owner of Santa Anita in my district and Golden Gate horse racing tracks, has declared bankruptcy and is planning to auction off many of its racetracks across the nation. The company that owns Hollywood Park Racetrack, has made no commitment to continue racing beyond this year. Cal Expo in Sacramento is considering building an NBA venue, along with retail and housing developments that would result in the termination of racing at the fair. While not solving all of the ills facing the industry, allowing proposition wagers to be added to the usual win, place, and show, or exotic wagers within the parimutuel wagering pool, will provide a more simplified option for individuals who are interested in horse racing. By allowing these simplified wagers, we will provide the industry an opportunity to market large events such as the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup to a larger group of individuals, thus increasing the awareness and popularity of the sport. AB 605 has no registered opposition and will serve as a lifeline to a struggling industry, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote. And with me is Linda Muir, who will answer any questions.
Linda Muir representing Santa Anita Racetrack and Golden Gate Fields, and I would only say that this bill has good provenance because our chairman carried it for us at one time.
I'll move the bill.
It's been moved by Senator Denham. Mr. Portantino, you may close.
It's a simple bill, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote. It has bipartisan support and seems like a logical step to help the racing industry.
Call the roll.
Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Benoit?
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham?
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores? Flores, aye. Negretti McLeod? Aye. Negretti McLeod, aye. Oropesa? Padilla? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins? Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye.
It's 9-0. We'll hold the roll open for some applicant members, but that's enough to move.
Thank you.
Okay, let me announce as well that AB 846 is going to be a 2-year bill per the author. So if you were here for 846, that's going to be a 2-year bill. And I think I saw Mr. Delatorre. Members, Mr. Delatorre has AB 1060, item number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Cigarettes, cold medicine, and spray paint are all currently controlled purchases. These products are either behind a cage or a counter. You can't just go up and pick them up and go pay for them because it requires multiple contacts between employees of the store and the consumer in order to purchase those items. I am asking for much less than that. AB 1060 will simply extend our current protections, partial protections, to alcohol by requiring a face-to-face transaction for alcohol purchases. Requiring retailers to conduct all alcohol sales in a face-to-face transaction with the cashier, merely a few feet away, would not be difficult compared to the potential for abuse by minors purchasing alcohol at self-checkout. A recent UCLA study conducted over 2 weeks with participants ranging in age from 21 to 41 visited 5 different grocery chains and conducted 97 visits. They found that the dilution of supervision created inadequate staffing, inconsistent monitoring, and technological failures. According to the CHP, over 6,200 people aged 20 or younger are killed or injured in alcohol-involved collisions. The thousands of DUI deaths and accidents in California alone give us the responsibility to protect our youth with every protection we can come up with. Whether scanning a soda and bagging a beer, or scanning a 1-liter water bottle and bagging a wine bottle, or simply not scanning the alcohol, the exposure of abuse and illegal purchasing are just too high. For this reason, I ask for your aye vote today. With me today, I have from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Silas Myers, and also from the Marin Institute, we also have another witness, Mike. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Underage drinking is the #1 youth drug problem in this country. Underage alcohol use is more likely to kill young people than all illegal drugs combined. And according to the U.S. Surgeon General, about 5,000 people under the age of 21 die each year due to underage drinking. Individuals under the age of 21 commit 45% of rapes, 44% of robberies, 37% of other assaults, and it is estimated that 50% of all violent crime related to people under the age of 21 is alcohol-related. MAD believes that limiting retail access to alcohol for those under the age of 21 is one key way to prevent those under the age from drinking. That's what this bill would do, and we ask for your support.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michael Skippa. I'm with Marin Institute, the alcohol industry watchdog. We are firmly in support of Mr. Delatorre's bill today because it is an elegant, simple measure that has as its sole reason for being prevention of alcohol-related harm. Alcohol-related harm in California is a problem that reaches every one of us to the tune of $38.4 billion a year for the state and its residents. That's $1,200 a second, 24/7. That harm is reflected in the vast sums of money that are spent on alcohol-related hospitalization, trauma care, law enforcement, treatment and recovery. Now, this bill is not going to solve all those problems, but what it will do is prevent at point of purchase a way for youth, as well as already inebriated adults, to purchase more alcohol without greater control. We believe that it will reduce harms and reduce costs to the state and reduce the pain and suffering in many lives. And so we would accept and appreciate your aye vote. Thank you.
With me also is I had Nguyen, who is a lane policy analyst. She was a participant in the study that I mentioned and can comment on the actual study as it was conducted.
Good afternoon, Senators. I'm here to speak in support of AB 1060. Lane works with communities in Los Angeles on issues affecting the working poor and minorities and low-income communities. Through our organizing, we've found that issues of access to alcohol were of concern to many residents. I conducted research for this study in partnership with the Community Economic Development Clinic at UCLA. As discussed, this survey was conducted over 2 weeks in April with participants as young as 21. And we visited 5 different grocery chains with a total of 97 visits to 34 different stores that had self-checkout machines. Some results of our survey demonstrate that it is possible to purchase alcohol through self-checkout machines without the oversight or approval of an employee. In particular, in almost 20% of instances, participants were able to purchase alcohol without approval from an employee, either because the self-out machines did not lock up when the alcohol was scanned, or the participant was able to bypass it with another item or a credit card. And 60% of the stores had only one person supervising self-checkout areas, and in 5 visits, there was no one working in the self-checkout area. Some stores has as many as 9 self-checkout stands with only one person overseeing them. Finally, in 30% of visits, participants between the age of 21 and 30 were not asked to show their identification. In 39% of cases, participants were not asked any questions, nor did staff try to make eye contact to ascertain their level of inebriation. I myself also participated in the study, and I was able to override the self-checkout system in 2 instances at a Ralph Allen and Albertsons. After I'd scanned the alcohol, the computer system locked up, and as I waited for approval for another employee, most of the time the employees were assisting other individuals. At that time, when I swiped my credit card or scanned another item, I was able to get the computer to say I no longer needed approval, finish my transaction, and leave. So the self-checkout machines are becoming commonplace at retail outlets throughout the state. In 2008, $230.7 billion worth of goods were purchased at retail stores through self-checkout machines. We believe that the public health concerns created by illegal access to alcohol merit safeguards to ensure that alcohol is sold safely and legally through self-checkout machines. That's why we're urging an aye vote on AB 1060. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim DeBoo on behalf of the City of Los Angeles. This study helped the City Council move to a support position for this bill, so we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Well, Senator Yee?
Sure. First off, this is kind of a difficult issue for me, trying to figure out the public policy related to that. And I think for me, the public policy related to that is one of ensuring that young individuals do not have access to alcohol. And I think, too, what does this do to our supermarkets and whatnot. So since most of the presentation thus far deals with, alcohol and young individuals, let me speak specifically to that. I kind of understand and, heard the study. Albeit that it's more of a survey and doesn't sort of do an adequate sampling and all that. But I would say that given what you have said, doesn't it seem to you then that this is a major problem and therefore major problem that there are a lot of youngsters who can potentially be accessing alcohol, and that this becomes a law enforcement issue. This becomes an ABC issue. And so then the question is, where's the data from ABC and law enforcement that these supermarkets need to then do something about the problems that they're creating for society and for local jurisdiction? So I don't know, whether or not the author or someone else from your group can answer that question.
Thank you for the question, Senator Yee. I think that it is on a nearly impossible task with all of the bars, restaurants, grocery stores, liquor stores in the state of California to ask that ABC or any entity, law enforcement, be out there monitoring this 24/7. So if we do not have the ability to have coverage up and down the state in all of those places where you can get alcohol, then you need to put in preemptive measures to address those sales. And that's what this bill does. It's a very simple approach to the question, which is to have a human being sell the alcohol. That's all this bill does at the end of the day. And grocery stores already comply with the cigarette law. They already comply with the ephedrine law, so the cold medicines that you have to buy that are set behind the counter. They already comply with those, and
some do. I've been around that.
So those are two of the items. Obviously, spray paint would be more at a Home Depot or something like that, but you already have them complying with the law in those areas. And I want to emphasize that the alcoholic beverage producers are not involved in this at all. They are not opposed to this. They're not for it. They are leaving this to us and to the retailers. So I think that's an important issue as well in terms of the negative impact is really not there on the producer side. It's just a protection for the public.
No, but you made a logical jump, and the jump that you made was that the data that was presented, albeit a survey, and then ipso facto you conclude that that's a problem, and therefore we should in fact have this piece of legislation. I'm not ready to make that jump yet. I'm still at the data point where if in fact this is a problem, then it seemed to me that local government, state government need to come in to address this problem. And I understand your response that, well, we don't have the resources, but what I'm saying is that if in fact the data is correct, that this is a huge problem, then one ought to just simply take that data and bring it to the local police department and say, the supermarkets in our area that have these kinds of self-checking are a potential a major public health problem, because young individuals can in fact access alcohol inappropriately. ABC, there's this data, and you need to somehow correct that problem. I don't see that, and that's the difficulty in terms of how major this problem is.
Well, you don't have to just take my word for it. You have the City of Los Angeles, which is a large local jurisdiction, and you have PORAC, the Police Officers Research Association, supporting this legislation for the same reason, which is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Senator Denham. You finished?
How many years have these self-checkout machines been around?
They have been around for, I don't know the exact number, but I think they first started appearing in early 2000 or so.
So about 9 years.
I don't know the exact number, but in recent years they've become much more prevalent, and it's expected that this year the amount of sales that will be purchased through self-checkout machines will more than double from 2008.
And how many ABC violations have we seen in conjunction with these?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
They don't track by the kind of activity. They just track by location.
It's my understanding they tracked by both. So ABC comes in and does a sting. They find a violation, and they don't keep track of who the employee in charge was, who's the manager in charge, what machine.
You can ask them when they show up. I know that when I was on the city council, the only stings that happened in the city were those done by the police department.
And does the police department keep track of that information?
In the city of Southgate, they do. I don't know about other departments.
Okay, in that city, how many of the violations that they found in their stings were due to these types of machines?
I haven't been on the city council for 5 years, so I don't know where they've been since these machines have prevailed. When I was on the city council, we had stings at bars, we had stings at grocery stores that were that produced the license being pulled, whatever the technical term is for that. And so I assume, and I haven't checked on this, and I'd be happy to check with my local city police whether they've had these incidents with these machines.
And as far as the survey itself that was done, what was the entity that did the survey?
It was a collaboration between the LA Alliance for a New Economy, which is my organization, and the UCLA Community Economic Development Clinic.
And that was in conjunction with ABC?
No, it wasn't.
So how did you conduct the survey?
We conducted the survey mainly by choosing a broad geographic area between Los Angeles and Orange County that had stores with self-checkout machines. We varied the data. We tried to visit the stores during various times of the day to make control for customer traffic as well as staffing issues. And we essentially selected we were only able to find 5 chains that had and used self-checkout machines, and so we went to every single one of those that we could find that were easily drivable.
But you didn't work with ABC on it?
No, we did not.
So you worked with local law enforcement, police, and sheriffs?
No, we didn't. It was a community-sponsored activity, and as I said, participants were at the youngest 21 because we weren't legally allowed to do anything under that.
Okay, so you had people that were of legal age go through and somehow able to work around the system, work around the machine, and purchase alcohol.
Yes.
97 visits, 34 stores, all in the LA area.
LA and Orange County.
Is there a member from ABC here?
Yes.
ABC is here? Yeah. Are we going to hear from them on the bill? I'm happy to wait until further testimony to ask ABC questions.
Okay. Senator Benoit?
Well, my question was, are we going to hear from opposition witnesses and specifically ABC? And maybe at that point,
yes. I mean,
should we wait till that point? Or?
Okay. I mean, if you want to do that, I'll defer on question for this panel.
I'll defer until we have had the opportunity to hear the opposition.
Senator Price?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know. Remember, we had a very energetic discussion of this in the Assembly GO.
You're in the fortunate position of hearing it twice.
Yeah, right. Lucky me. But I recall some discussion with the then opponents. I guess we'll hear from them shortly about how there was a technological solution to this problem. Did those discussions go anywhere? Does the bill reflect concerns that were raised by the opposition? And is there some kind of a
No, there have been further discussions, but those have not produced any changes in the legislation as of yet.
Senator Weiland?
Just a few comments in terms of how long this has been around. I'd say at least since 1995. I used to be one of the owners of a piece of property which was sold, and what went on that property was Food for Less, which has since been bought out by their entity. And the reason they did that was they offered, as the name of the store suggests, food for less. And so the reason they were able to do that was not because they said, we want to get rid of a bunch of employees, or we want to make sure that we break the union that most of them belong to. They were looking at a market. In this case, it was a market mostly of people in a lower socioeconomic status, for whom every dollar they spent on food was a big deal. And that's one of the ways they save costs. So, number one, I think in terms of offering essential products to people, especially in these economic times, it's a cost center. And the only other thing, and this may have been covered, it's my understanding, and I guess we'll hear about this, that the protections, when they go through the scanning, when they go through these machines, alerts staff in the store to then go and verify that the person is legally able to buy that. And I can tell you from my own business experience, any store that would be dilatory, you'd have to wait in that line a couple of minutes before a manager came over, they're going to lose business. My guess is they are set up so that buzzer goes off, someone goes over there right then, because the whole point of that in saving the money is to make sure that line flows easily and quickly. So I know you may want to address those points, but those just
we'll have him do that on a close. Senator Negrete McLeod.
Assemblymember Delatorre, I'm really conflicted with this bill. I understand what you're doing, and I know that most of the bills you carry, you're doing it for the betterment of California. However, my only experience is, since I don't do shopping anymore, because I don't cook, is my...
You do?
No, I don't. I do sometimes.
All right.
For good people.
All right.
So, my husband's not a good person then, because I don't cook for him. So, anyway, my local Albertsons,
Mm-hmm.
which is the only store I go down in my district, they have one checker for each two of those out-service, those self-service, and for each, they have 4 of them, so they've got 2 checkers, one on each side, that watches those 4. And I noticed in Safeway here, they've got, I think they only got 2, but they've got somebody at the end, so I don't know where they're unmanned. And I think I also side with Senator Yee that if this is a problem, then we really have to look at it at where the problem exists, rather than kids running outside. So I'm really conflicted with this one.
Well, there's 2 issues. One is the minors, as has been talked about quite a bit here, but the other responsibility is to not serve to people who are drunk. And if you're, someone like me that's clearly not underage and is 10 feet away at a self-checkout machine, and the person who's watching over looks over and sees that I'm not, 19 years old, then they disable the machine and let me continue my purchase. They never came over. They never interacted with me. They don't know if I'm drunk or not. And that's part of the responsibility as well.
Let me get the opposition and ABC to come forward. If you need someone...
Mr. Chair, members, Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the Consumer Federation of California in support.
Okay. Opposition.
Mr. Chairman and members, John Latimer on behalf of the California Retailers Association. We are in opposition to Mr. Delatorre's measure. We are licensed by the ABC and take our responsibility in selling alcohol to the public very seriously. A number of our members do use this technology. One thing I know the committee knows this, but it's important to be redundant about this. The responsibility, and this is clearly the position of the department, the responsibility of the retailer is no different if we are selling alcohol through self-checkout or selling alcohol through a check stand that is staffed by a clerk. If an illegal sale is made to a minor, that facility is cited, that license is cited, our risk and our jeopardy is just as great. So to the extent that we utilize technology, we utilize it with the threat against our license. We have to use it wisely. The ABC, and I know there'll be further discussion on this, has looked at that, the issue of underage sales to minors, and not found a prevalent problem there that exists beyond other issues that they have to watch in the retail environment today. I would also comment that the study, which I stipulate I have not done exhaustive research on and analysis on, but what I've heard from the proponents is it was all people over the age of 21. Now, the law for a retailer does allow the retailer an awful lot of discretion. It is not law that we card every person who comes in to buy alcohol.
But the point was that the person purchased the alcohol and the machine didn't determine that the person was 21. So it wasn't, I mean, what she was saying is that to cover herself that they didn't go break the law. So the people were 21, but the system didn't verify the age of the person.
I stipulate that. I understand that, Mr. Chairman, very clear. But the point is, again, in the same way that we don't card every person, our best business practices is to have the machine lock out. There's no question. That's the best business practice. That's what many of our members do when an alcohol transaction comes through. In certain circumstances, it did not. If that circumstance that you described were to involve a minor, it would have been a violation. So the point I'm making attached to that is there is an accountability factor already there for the licensee. If that machine was or that technology was defeated, there's a potential violation. So, and the other circumstances that are described by the author and by proponents are frankly efforts of young people to steal from us. And the somewhat difficult part of this is I don't hear the proponents of this arguing also that we ought to increase penalties for young people who try to steal alcohol, because that is what's going on when someone swipes a Coke and then puts a bottle of alcohol behind their back and puts it in the cart. That's theft. And we obviously, as retailers, don't, that's not a way to run our business, and promoting that theft is acceptable.
Okay, well, hold your point. I'm going to go to the...
John Caldwell on behalf of the California Grocers Association. As the analysis points out, ABC staff indicates they have no evidence of any problems associated with minors purchasing alcoholic beverages through self-service checkouts. That's been in the analysis of this bill when it was in the last year. There's no problem. I think, take a step back, what does this bill require? What happens today versus what's going to happen? Today, you go in, you swipe the beer, the clerk is alerted, they come over, they check your ID, or not check your ID.
Probably not the word you want to use under this circumstance. Swiping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
It goes, anyway, so then you go on your way, you pay, and go home and have your beer or whatever. If this bill passes, what happens is you're going to go in, wave it, not swipe it. It comes up, and the clerk will come over and say, "You can't buy it here. You have to go down you have to go down to the end of the store where there's 5 people in line and buy." That's all this bill does. And I don't see how that is going to stop. That's going to stop a minor. It's going to stop a minor in the way that bill's written.
Okay, let me hear from some other opposition. And ABC, if you more opposition, or ABC, if you'd come and just grab a seat, because there were several questions for you. And
Mr. Chairman, members, Joe Gregorich with Tech America, the nation's largest high-tech trade association, here in opposition. This bill reminds me of an old saying my grandma used to say, that's like having supper before saying grace, meaning this is a solution in search of a problem. It's a solution in search and singling out a technology. We believe we're barking up the wrong tree here. We're going after technology. We should be strengthening the crimes against minors theft. We're in the state of California, the home of the high-tech industry. We should be supporting and promoting the use of technology in all our lives, and not going after the technology. So, again, I'm here in opposition. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members, Paul Gladfelty representing NCR, which is one of the technology companies that provides point-of-sale equipment and so on. As the last gentleman mentioned, We don't see this as a technology issue. We continue to improve our technology. If there are issues that are occurring, it's a training issue. We have extensive training with the people that use the machines, what to look for, how to use the machines, and so on. There may be instances where somebody's going to want to game the machines. We don't think that it's a prevalent circumstance. Anytime you have technology, somebody's going to want to beat that technology. But again, we're continuing to improve it. Training is very essential. It is an assisted self-checkout, and so it does require some human interaction with it. And so with that, we oppose the bill.
Okay. Let me say too. I mean, in my own experimentation here, I actually went to 4 different stores that do it, and it might just be that I'm too stupid, but I was not able to defeat it. That probably says more about me than it does, 18-year-old kids today. But in each of the instances where I went, I did try to scan the beer, and then actually it was wine for me because I hate beer. But I tried to scan the wine and then do the card right afterward. That didn't work. So the clerk did have to come and do the override. That was in both Sacramento and in Compton. The stores that I went to. Not to say that it couldn't be done. I wasn't able, though, I didn't try the episode, though, that I read on one of the descriptions where you take a like weight item and place it in, because as you know, when you place the item by the scanner, you have a certain amount of time that you have to place that item on the table, and the SKU code actually measures the weight of the item. So if you don't place the item on the thing in a certain period of time, it also causes the machine to lock up. Well, just as you didn't want to have an underage person buy alcohol, I didn't want to have the store people come and accuse me of trying to rip off some alcohol. So I didn't push my experiment beyond that. But I did try to substitute a like item that was different. And the machine was not able to catch that. So to your point, I would have been able to technically steal the item if I scanned one and put something else into the counter. But that effectively would have been theft, which isn't unique to the technology, because I could, if I'm going to steal, then stealing is stealing. So that would be no different than me putting the beer in my pocket and walking out the store. So I'm not sure, again, the technology, but I tried all of the things that I saw, and I was unsuccessful, at doing that. And probably, again, much more of a testament to my own, inability to defeat the technology than it was the other. But let me ask it at ABC, what have you guys seen in this regard? We had several questions, I think, that went to you, and I think Senator Benoit had another question, and Senator Yee.
Mr. Chairman, members, Chris Albrecht for the department. In terms of the question, the department the department's enforcement efforts are largely complaint-driven. Historically, we have not seen any increased or large numbers of complaints, or received large numbers of complaints related to self-service checkouts or their operation within off-sale premises throughout the state.
Senator Benoit.
Thank you. Well, let me see that this comes across as definitely a tech versus labor using ABC discussion we're having, and I've got to say that I think that we've got to be very thoughtful before we outlaw the use of a technology for the reasons presented here. I'm picked up a lot of...
To be clear, that we're not outlying any technology.
Well, we're extremely limiting them. The experience I've had with alcohol and personally is rather limited, but I certainly have had a lot of people I've arrested, people I've seen lives dramatically altered, changed horribly. I am fully in support of what Mad's concerns are and others, and your concerns as that they deal with underage drinking. But In my experience, the vast majority of the alcohol obtained by children under 21, young adults under 21, was by a purchase of an adult. And then given to them, whether it's a friend, a school, somebody meet in the parking lot, and this machine has nothing to do with that. And I think that ABC would probably say that that's probably a much larger problem than anything we're addressing with this bill. As to the study, I'd like to just point out the unmanned check stand, I think, is a myth. Not too long ago, my wife and I were in a Target, got home and found that we're missing a plant stand that we bought. Called the Target store, said, "What happened here? I think maybe we paid for this. It was on the receipt, but we didn't get it." And the guy said, "Can you have the receipt number?" And where is? Oh yeah, here it is. And I read it to him. He said, "I'll call you back." 5 minutes later, he called me back and said, "Is your wife wearing a striped blouse?" Yeah. Well, then you're the bald guy, that fat bald guy was with her, right? Yeah. But you picked it off the stand after you paid for it and put it in the bottom of the cart and took it out of the store. Okay, I guess maybe I forgot to unload it from the cart to the car. That was, obviously not an unmanned stand. There's a lot more than what might be perceived by the person involved in the study in terms of security and watching this. It makes no sense for the store not to have complete control for theft purposes as well as ABC purposes of this. So I have a little question on that. The other thing about these machines, when they lock out for reasons. One is when they sense alcohol, and if the chair, and then the other one is weight. And many times I've found lately when I go through, let's say, a Home Depot, the lady sees that I'm handling an item that's too big to put on the counter. She pushes a button and the lockout is overridden. In the case of an alcoholic beverage, the law is not that they have to be carded if they're under 30. The law is you can't sell to anybody under 21. So if the chair puts alcohol in there and suddenly the thing goes away, locked up, it's because somebody has looked at the chair and said, "I think he's over 21." And that would probably be appropriate in this case. Darn it, where's the chair when I went that line? And in the case of the study, that would be the case also. Just because someone doesn't stop and come check an ID, it is not required by law that they check the ID. It's required that they not sell to someone under 21. And if they're making the determination visually that the person is sober and over 21 and push the button to allow that to happen, they have complied with the law. They're not selling to a minor under 21 years of age. I think that the data that would be that is being proffered to say that this is a problem is relatively small. Certainly, I have some serious questions about it. Yet the attack on technology is very, very significant, and I think on balance we have to be very, very careful when we're going to reduce the use of technology, which drives prices higher and reduces choice for consumers, based on very limited. And in the case of ABCs, as I understand their materials, I've reviewed it before the hearing, not so much what was presented here today, almost negligible experience that would point to this technology as a problem in this area. I would urge my colleagues to think about that before they would support a bill that would limit the use of technology to the advantage of the consumer for a problem that has not been well demonstrated.
Senator Denham, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, first of all, to ABC, how many violations have you found with these machines?
I know of only several in the past 5 years.
Compared to, so you've been tracking it for 5 years?
Not necessarily tracking. It's random questioning that I've done through our local district offices throughout the state. I shouldn't say random questioning, statewide questioning of our local regional administrators.
So when a violation, when you go through and you do a sting and there's a violation, can you take me through what type of documentation you keep track of?
The department would keep records of what type of transaction took place. Date
and time.
Date, time.
Manager on duty.
Persons involved, including
cashiers.
Managers and cashiers. Yes.
so you'd also keep track of the, I would assume, the aisle number or the register number?
Not always, but oftentimes for evidentiary purposes, we obtain receipts that would have that information.
Okay, so currently today, do you document whether or not it's one of these types of machines or whether it's a full cashier of the traditional sense?
We would somewhere, likely within the narrative portion of the report, describing the circumstances under which the sale took place.
Okay, so you could provide this committee with a report that would show statistically how many violations you've seen over the last few years, as well as how many violations specifically took place with these types of machines?
Through some effort, yes.
Okay. I mean, through the chair, I would be interested in seeing that. I think the entire committee would be responsible enough to look at factual documentation on this. I do believe that there is some type of problem here. The question is how big. Certainly you can game the system. Certainly there is some technology that is either faulty or some stores that may not have the technology at all. I mean, I would be willing to support a bill that mandated the lockout technology. I would be hopeful that the opposition to this bill would be supportive of that type of bill as well. I'm just not in a position today without statistics to show from the ABC that they have the information. Without seeing that information, I wouldn't be willing to support some new mandate that may or may not address a problem. But I mean, think about that as whether or not this bill gets out of committee today. But a mandate on the lockout technology would be something that I could support.
All right, thank you. Next was Senator Weiland.
Just briefly, I'm supposed to be in two other committees. It's my experience, and I think Senator Wright alluded to it, that the main source of alcohol in minors is people who are over 21 buying it. And I've been in a convenience store here where literally you see 3 or 4 people come in, and the one who's over 21 buys it. It's clear that all 3 or 4 of them are going to consume it. But it's the one who's over 21 who's buying it. And some of us probably remember being in that situation, quite candidly. We look back. And the other thing I think is, I understand what Senator Denham is saying about the lockout, because the cost to a store, and we'll see what ABC comes up with, the cost to a store of a citation or multiple citations and perhaps losing that license is just so great. They can't take that chance. It's such a big profit maker. So I just make those 2 comments. But I appreciate the author trying to deal with that underage drinking problem. I just don't see the way the bill is formulated now as the ideal way to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Senator Yee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I've got a question for the industry, and that is that in the research that was conducted, she indicated that there was a need when they went through and scanned the product for checking one's license, and nothing happened. And I guess the question is that in these stores, when there is a need for the presentation of some identification, do you have sufficient personnel around to then, ensure that those verifications in fact occur? Can you comment on that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Again, John Latimer on behalf of California Retailers. My short answer, of course, would be yes, we think we do. The industry staffs the stores according to the volume and level of traffic that we think that we anticipate coming in and out of that store. The area at the front of the store where we maintain the money, where there's the pathway to get outside the store with potentially goods and products and services, we try to staff that to the highest level when the store's operating hours are on, because the potential of theft and loss, and also the greatest demand for customer service is right there in the front of the store. So long-winded way of saying, yes, I think we do. But there's not a standard that we're staffing it to, other than meeting the needs of any given store profile, what we think is needed in terms of the traffic.
Right. Then maybe a follow-up. You have some operations within your industries that don't use any personnel whatsoever, and so how do you handle those situations then?
And I think, Mr. Chairman, Senator Yee, you're referring to there is at least one of our retailer members that staffs its store in what we'd say otherwise a non-traditional model, whereas heavy focus and emphasis on technology versus a combination of technology and staffed lanes. In those cases, again, no representative from the company is here today, unfortunately, but my understanding is they have multiple people in the store providing multiple functions, including closing out and finishing transactions at the point of sale for customers, again, as they arise. I do not know what their staffing pattern, however, is in that store.
And my final question is to the researcher. I think that Senator Benoit brought up a point. Like Senator Grady McLeod, I don't shop at all, and so I don't understand how these things work. You don't cook it? No, I don't. I should reach over.
He's got a wife, I've got a
but Senator Benoit, brought up a point, and that is that there may be individuals that are, in fact, watching some of these self-checking aisles, and therefore the experience that you had or some of your researchers had where they were not, in fact, confronted, and maybe it was, in fact, because someone saw, the particular customer and made a determination that these individuals were of age and therefore allow you to continue your purchase, and that's the reason why. Were you aware of that piece of information, or if you weren't, now that you're aware, does that somehow change some of your conclusions and your results?
Well, I understand what you're referring to, and yes, that is an issue, but what we found was there were three things that we were looking for. One was technological problems, two was staffing, and three was the monitoring. So when we walked in, we were very careful to see how many employees were actually watching the checks stands, and it still doesn't address the issue that if you don't speak to someone, if you don't walk up to someone, you cannot assess their ID and you cannot assess their level of intoxication. And to that point, I wanted to address Senator Benoit and Senator Weiland's comments that a lot of access that youth have to alcohol is through adults buying it for them. The reason why they do that is because they don't have ID, and they're afraid an employee will be able to determine that they are not over 21. If they're able to use a system which allows them to bypass so that no one ever checks their ID, it essentially, they don't need an adult then.
Let me ask ABC, and I apologize, I ran out for a minute. Do you approve of machines or systems that sell alcohol? Is that a requirement now?
Senator, the department doesn't approve or disapprove any type of technology. Only requires that licensees abide by the law and not sell alcohol to minors or intoxicated people.
Okay, but if I'm coming back. If the defeat rate is as high, and again, I attempted and I was unable to defeat it, but let's assume that their research is accurate. If the defeat rate is as high as reported, would that not give ABC alarm to say, perhaps we should investigate this?
In a situation as you described, in a store that might have the technology possibly not working or not being used properly, the department, it would raise concern for the department that there is the potential for violation to exist, and the department, if it found out about a circumstance like that, would likely create an enforcement assignment to keep track of that location to determine if, in fact, it is leading to violations of the law.
Okay, I got Flores and Benoit.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Just the ABC, just a very simple threshold question. Would this, in your mind, help in the quest of getting underage drinkers in a better place than they are now under our current system? Is this one more tool?
The department does encourage, obviously, any kind of steps taken by the retail industry to curb youth access to alcohol.
But in this particular bill, is this one more tool that would be of value to you as ABC? It's just a very simple question.
The department could see some circumstances in which preventing electronic technology from being used to reduce instances.
Okay, and does this bill do that?
I don't know.
Mr. Chair, let me make just a threshold. Well, Senator Dem's right, so clearly it would. And I guess I'm simple. If we can give one more tool to ABC that has value, then I think we ought to do that. And I think if you're voting against this, then you're clearly saying you're not going to give ABC one more tool in order to curb underage drinking. I don't know any other way to read it other than ABC telling us right here that, in their mind, this may be one more tool that would prevent. And I understand the statistics, and I think they're important, and I understand the arguments about, is there a problem? Well, if we're all out to introduce bills that solve, a problem after the fact, then we might as well close shop here in the legislature, number one. And number two is our job as public policymakers is to ask the question, it only takes one drunk underage teen to wipe out one family on a highway. And what's the value of that? So I don't really care about the statistics, particularly if statistics are pointing to stores that right now are just ramping up and don't even exist in any meaningful form. So, if these stores continue to proliferate, continue to see more of them, I will tell you that your statistics on the natural, even if they stay static, will increase on a per capita basis. So I just don't. This is why the threshold question to ABC is the most important. And that is that it gives them one more tool to curb one more drunk driver who's underage off the roads, and I think it's a valuable public policy tool, and I think that's about as simple as I can get, Mr. Chairman, at least on my aye vote.
Okay. Senator Benoit?
Yeah, based on a couple of comments made by the proponents for the study, and I'd like to bounce this off ABC. You mentioned a couple, I think two of your three things you were looking for when you went into the study was how many checkers and how many people watching. Did you have any way of telling how many people were watching you from a security office upstairs with cameras while you were doing this?
No.
So the idea of how many people are watching was really not well addressed by your study.
We did address the issue of whether whether they had an obstructed or unobstructed view of the check stands, and that was based on whether we saw staff actually on the floor. I can imagine it's possible to see what's actually happening at the check stand from a monitor, but
I can guarantee you it is. They picked me out real well from the scenario I described. So the idea of how many people are watching is really not accurately depicted in this one effort. If that 25-year-old that was a part of the study attempted to buy liquor and ran it through the machine, a checker either in close proximity who looked at them or even someone watching from a camera took a look at that person and said, this person's obviously over 25 and overrode the machine and allowed them to buy it. Is there any violation of the ABC rules under that scenario?
No, there's not.
So that when they authorize that because it looks from a distance like the thing is too big to put on the table or alcohol, but it's actually a 30-year-old, they can authorize that without actually having to go and say, can I see your driver's license?
That is correct.
Okay, so those are not violations. I again reemphasize, there are a lot of ways these stores can protect their most hugely valuable ABC license, which is critically important to them. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to check an ID.
What happens, though, in that instance is that the checker would still have to go to the machine to override.
I beg your pardon, but they can also do it from their position 5 feet away at a different computer, and they can say, okay, the item on check stand number 3 I see is too big to go on the cart, or alcohol but is being purchased by yourself, and they can push the button there. They don't have to go to that machine.
But it would process. I mean, if you would know at that site that an override took place.
Yeah, it would be stop, overweight item, or whatever would go away, and you could then scan your next item. That's what you would see.
Right.
And my point is that it doesn't require that they go and pull a driver's license and look at it in the case of alcohol, or that they go weigh a product. They can do it from another check stand. They could do it from upstairs in the security booth. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the system is flawed because someone walked through and bought an item and it was allowed to be purchased. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I guess, okay, Senator Flores moves. I think we've heard from everyone, and
I still have one more.
I'm sorry.
One more just as a follow-up. I think Senator Flores is correct. I know I answered for you from the ABC standpoint. I think it's common sense that if you put one person at every check stand, that is one more tool. If you put 2 people at every check stand, that'd be 2 more tools, or 5 people at every check stand. An extra camera, extra security up in the security booth, 2 managers. I mean, all these things could be added tools. From somebody who was a clerk, who was a UFCW member, who was nervous about my own job at times, I want some greater reassurance. And for me, greater reassurance would have been that lockout mandatory system that I knew from my job, from my perspective, that if it was caught right there, then that was backup for me. Now, I would think that that would also be a new tool that would be helpful to you if it was mandated across the state that every retail machine, self-serve retail machine, had a mandatory lockout, and that there were no self-service machines out there anywhere in the state that didn't have that lockout system. I would think that that would not only be something that would have backed up an individual like myself at the time as an employee, but would be one more tool for ABC, would it not?
Yes, that would be a tool. I wouldn't be able to comment on whether or not that would reduce numbers,
Sure,
but it surely human interaction cannot be substituted for, no matter what type of technology is being used. The issue of driver's licenses themselves often comes up with people walking through manually serviced checkout stands, clearly looking at an identification of a minor decoy that indicates 17 years of age, and making the sale anyway. But obviously, in answer to your question, yes, it does appear that a prohibition.
And as a law enforcement agency, as you're going out and doing stings, I would expect that this would be one area that you would look at. And so, again, I would like to see the statistics to see how big of a problem this is. And clearly, maybe we do need to add more personnel at some point. I'd like to see the study that shows that. I'd like to see the concrete statistics from ABC on your own stings that would show that. But at this time, I'm not offering a hostile amendment, but certainly to get my vote, if we did have mandatory lockout, that seems like that would be obviously one more tool and something that I, as well as other members, could support.
Okay. We've got a motion pending from Senator Flores, and Senator Flores, you.
Maybe I don't understand the technology enough to know whether or not the author feels that lockout is a viable option or not. We never want to lose Senator Denham's vote. God forbid us. I want to make sure I want to see what the author has to say in terms of that.
in terms of making sure the machines knock
Senator
out.
Denham's point, I'm really interested in just understanding a little bit more.
My point, it was on the very study that there were ways that some machines didn't work. There were some ways to game the machines themselves, and I want to see a mandatory lockout. And I want to make sure. You said some stores don't have these machines. Let's mandate it that they all, if you're going to have self-service machines, that they have lockout. I would think that would remove. I would hope that would remove the opposition from both the technology standpoint as well as the retail standpoint. That we all want to ensure that minors aren't gaming the system.
If I can take some of my time back. I think Senator Denham's point, I just like to understand it, and I'm wondering, I know it will not remove the opposition. I doubt it. The retailers, it's not going to happen. But I do want to know if we can get Senator Denham's vote with that, and just like to get the author's perspective on it. I'm with the bill as it stands. I'd just like to know what it means in terms of Senator Denham's suggestion, what it would mean for the bill.
Look, I appreciate the idea, but two fundamental things. We have heard from two different people up here, ABC saying that they've had only several issues with these machines, and one of the technology opponents coming up here and saying there may be instances where the machines can be overruled. So again, the remedy is not to outlaw the machines. It's not to change the way they do business. The remedy is really quite simple. It's just for the person who's purchasing alcohol to go 5 feet, 10 feet away and go to a regular checkout line.
Okay,
that's the remedy in this bill, and it's not an onerous requirement.
We'll let that be the close. We've got a motion from Senator Flores. Call the roll.
Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. Benoit?
No.
Benoit, no. Calderon? Denham?
No.
Denham, no. Flores?
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negrete McLeod?
Aye.
Negrete McLeod, aye. Orapeza? Padilla? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins? Wyland? Yee. Currently 4-3.
4-3. You need 3 more.
These are for you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay.
In support of the bill.
Okay. Well, please send them all back a note saying I voted aye. Okay. Mr. Johnson.
Chairman, are we going to break for?
This is the last
Send me
one
the
here.
list of the whole state. I
Yeah, and this
respond
is
to everybody. Builds the list.
Members, we have one. This is our last item, and then we're going to open the roll. Which one do you have, sir?
22.
22. Thank you. That's right. The one's not on. Okay. The racehorsing officials one. This is a GO bill from the Assembly GO Committee. I'm not aware of any opposition. It's been moved by Senator Grady McLeod. Why don't you just say what it is, sir?
First and foremost, the Assembly member sends his apologies for not being able to testify. This is the annual GO committee bill related to horse racing. It makes technical cleanup changes to the horse racing law. There was no opposition to the bill, and I ask for your aye vote. I have Kirk Breed with me, the executive director of the Horse Racing Board, to answer any questions.
He's a good man. Call the roll.
Wright?
Aye.
Wright, aye. Harmon? Benoit?
Aye.
Benoit, aye. Calderon?
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham?
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores?
Aye.
Flores, aye. Negrete McLeod?
Aye.
Negrete McLeod, aye. Orapeza? Padilla? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Wiggins? Wyland? Yee.
Harmon, aye.
Harmon, aye.
Nice prediction, Richard.
It's okay. Why don't we go now through the roll and go back, and we'll start to close out. Okay, here, wait a minute. I'm not sure because we're going to have caucus in a minute. So, Sergeant, can you call our absent members? I guess Wiggins and Padilla.
Do you want me to replace calls if I lift them right now, in case they run back in?
Yeah, let's replace them. Go ahead.
Item number 1 represents the consent calendar. Current vote is 7-0. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. It's 9-0. We'll replace the call. Item number 4, AB 472, as amended. Current vote is 5-1. Absent members Benoit. Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. That's now 6-1. We'll replace that call. Item number 6, AB 579. Current vote is 8-0. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. That's 9-0. We'll replace the call. Item number 7, AB 600. Current vote is 8-0. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. It's 9-0. We'll replace the call. Item 8, AB 605. Current vote 9-0. Absent members Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. Remains 9-0. We'll replace the call. Item 10, AB 756. Current vote is 5-2. Absent members Denham.
No.
Denham, no. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye.
How did the vice chair vote?
That's 6-3. Vice chair is a no.
No, Wyland, no.
Wyland, no. It's 6-4. We'll replace the call. Item 11, AB 813. Current vote is 7-1. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland. That's 8-1. We'll replace the call.
Wyland, no.
Item 11, Wyland, no. It's 8-2. We'll replace the call.
Wyland, no to aye.
Wyland, no to aye on item 11. It's 9-1.
Trying to cover 3 committees.
Okay.
We'll replace the call. Item number 14, AB 1006. Current vote is 5-1. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Flores.
Aye.
Flores, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Wiggins. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye.
Aye.
Benoit, no to aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's currently 10-0. We'll replace that call. Item 15, AB 1060. Current vote is 4-3. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Oropeza. Padilla. Padilla, aye.
That's, I didn't know. That was not voting.
Oh, once I have you, I've got to have you at
I didn't
something.
know.
Calderon, aye to no. Wiggins. Wyland.
No.
Wyland, no. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 6-5. We'll replace that call. Item 16 is currently 8-0. Absent members Oropeza. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. That's 10-0. We'll replace the call. Item 18, AB 1444. Current vote 9-0. Absent members Oropeza. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. That's 11-0. Replace that call. Item 21, AB 1470. Current vote is 7-0. Absent members Calderon.
Aye.
Calderon, aye. Denham.
Aye.
Denham, aye. Oropeza. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. Wyland. Wyland, aye. That's 11-0. Item 22, AB 1575. Current vote is 8-0. Absent members Oropeza. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. That is 11-0. We'll replace that call. You want to go back through? Just announce everything?
Go through one more time.
Let me just check real quick. I'm going to start back over right now. No, I don't have them. Do you see that? We'll go back through one more time. Item 1 represents the consent calendar. It's 9-0. Absent members Oropeza. Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, aye. That's 11 to 0. We'll close that. It passes 11 to 0. Item 4, AB 472. Current vote is 6 to 1. Absent members Benoit, Denham, Oropeza, Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins, Wyland. That's 7 to 1. Passes. Item number 6, AB 579. Currently 9 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla, Wiggins, Wyland. That passes 9 to 0. Item 7, currently 9 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla, Padilla, aye. Wiggins, Wyland. That passes 10 to 0. Item 8, AB 605, currently 9 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla,
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins, Wyland. That passes 10 to 0. Item 10, AB 756, it's currently 6 to 4. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, aye. Wiggins. That passes 7 to 4. Item 11, AB 813. It's currently 9 to 1. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla, Wiggins. That passes 9 to 1. Item 14, AB 1006. It's currently 10 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Padilla, Wiggins. That passes 10 to 0. Item 15, AB 1060. It's currently 6 to 5. Absent members Oropeza, Wiggins. That fails 6 to 5. Item 16, AB 1282. It's currently 10 to 0. Absent members Calderon, Oropeza, Wiggins. That passes 10 to 0. Item 18, AB 1444. Absent members Oropeza, Wiggins. That passes 11 to 0. Item 21, AB 1470. It's currently 11 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Wiggins. That passes 11 to 0. Item 22, AB 1575. It's currently 11 to 0. Absent members Oropeza, Wiggins. That passes 11 to 0.
Did Mr. Delatorre ask for reconsideration?
We'll notice reconsideration.
Chair?
We need a reconsideration.
Reconsideration.
We will. Yeah, we will. Consideration for.
Item 15, AB 1060, will grant reconsideration. Without objection.
That's it, man. No more. Yeah, I'm really proud. Hang in there, okay? You should get to know this lady. Very, very important. She made me do this.
Okay, the committee will adjourn.